Okay, so ready for this? We're doing John von Neumann today. You know, the computer guy.
Right, the computer guy, kind of.
But wasn't he involved with, like, the atomic bomb and stuff, too?
Oh, yeah, he definitely was. But even with all that, even with the moon crater named after him, just calling him the computer guy really doesn't cover it. I mean, some people have even said he's perhaps the most influential mathematician ever.
Wow. Okay, so not just a computer guy, then.
Not even close. There's a quote from something I read. It said he had perhaps the widest coverage of any mathematician of his time. Like he bridged pure and applied sciences in a way no one else really did.
So we're talking about someone who was basically fluent in, like, every kind of science and math there is.
Pretty much. And get this, it all started super early with him, like child prodigy level stuff.
Oh, yeah. I always take those stories with a grain of salt.
No, I'm serious. We're talking 6 years old, casually dividing 8-digit numbers in his head.
Whoa. Okay, that's not just being good at math. That's
Yeah. Exactly. And it gets even crazier. At 12, this kid is digging into advanced mathematical theory. I'm talking stuff most people wouldn't even touch in college. To even grasp those concepts at that age, it suggests a completely different way of thinking.
So what are we talking? Was he just born with, like, a super brain or something?
Well, there's definitely some natural talent there. Gotta have that. But it's more than that. It's how that talent was nurtured, too. Von Neumann was incredibly curious, even as a little kid.
So he wasn't like those math geniuses who only care about numbers.
Nope, not at all. You want to hear something wild? He read a 46-volume world history set as a kid.
Yeah.
Shows you just how broad his interests were.
Okay, so not a one-track mind. And his, like, actual career. I bet that's nuts, too.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
We're talking publishing groundbreaking math papers practically every month at one point.
Every month.
Set theory, ergodic theory, measure theory, revolutionizing entire fields left and right.
Yeah, even I'm not going to pretend I understand all those.
And these aren't just some random, obscure math things either. They have huge GE implications, like in computer science, physics, economics.
Whoa, okay. So for those of us who maybe slept through calculus, can you break down what some of those even are and why they matter?
Sure, so take set theory, right? It's basically the bedrock of modern math. Deals with collections of objects and their properties. What von Neumann did was he helped solidify that foundation, came up with a system of axioms, kind of like fundamental rules.
So he was like creating the rules for how math works.
Kind of. And that had a huge impact on how mathematicians understand, well, everything.
That's kind of mind-blowing.
It is. And he didn't stop there. He made equally big contributions to, like, ergodic theory, which looks at how systems behave over a long period of time, and measure theory, which is a way to measure really complex sets.
So pretty important stuff then.
Understatement. These things have applications in statistics, probability, even predicting the weather.
Okay, so we've established he was crazy prolific. But here's a curveball I found. Apparently, he didn't even publish a lot of his proofs and theorems.
It's true.
Why not? If I had that kind of brain, I'd be shouting it from the rooftops.
Right. It shows he had a different kind of motivation. It wasn't about fame or recognition for him. This guy was driven by pure love of knowledge, pushing the boundaries of what we understand. There's this famous story, right? He's at a lecture, someone presents a crazy complex math problem that stumped everyone, and von Neumann just casually lays out the solution using this thing called duality theory.
And he just knew it off the top of his head.
Basically. Turns out he developed this whole new mathematical theory just in his head, hadn't even written it down.
Are you kidding me? This guy was on another level.
He was, always making connections, seeing patterns no one else could.
Like his brain was a supercomputer, processing everything at warp speed.
Exactly. And speaking of computers...
So we've got this picture of von Neumann, math genius, right?
Yeah.
But he wasn't just stuck in some ivory tower scribbling equations all day.
Oh, no, not at all. This guy was involved in some of the biggest events of the century. I mean, we have to talk about his work on the Manhattan Project.
Right, the atomic bomb. That's where his expertise in explosions comes in.
You got it. Explosions, not your average academic interest, right?
Definitely not.
Yeah.
What was it about explosions that he was so into?
Well, remember how we were saying he loved connecting different fields, explosions? That was perfect for him. Physics, complex calculations, even a bit of, unpredictability.
Okay, so he gets on the Manhattan Project, this super secret mission to build an atomic bomb. What did he actually do there?
So his expertise was really key in developing the plutonium bomb, specifically the implosion method, which was super technically challenging. Think about it. trying to make a perfectly symmetrical explosion inwards to compress plutonium.
That just sounds insanely difficult.
It was. Incredibly precise calculations, innovative engineering, that was von Neumann's sweet spot. He even helped design the explosive lenses they used for the symmetrical implosion.
Wow. So he wasn't just, like, theorizing about explosions. He was designing the real deal.
Exactly. And it's important, to really think about what that means to decisions being made, the ethics of it all.
Yeah, it's heavy stuff. And wasn't he on that committee that chose the target for the bomb?
He was.
And his first choice was Kyoto, one of Japan's most important cultural cities. That's kind of terrifying to think about.
It really shows you the weight of that situation, the pressure everyone was under. And, later in life, von Neumann really grappled with the ethical side of nuclear weapons, became a big advocate for arms control. He knew how bad it could get if that technology fell into the wrong hands.
Shows that even the most brilliant minds, they're still human,
Right.
still struggling with the consequences of what they create.
Exactly. It's all part of what makes von Neumann such a fascinating figure, not just some detached genius. He was right there in the thick of it, dealing with the real-world impact of his work.
And there's that story about him watching the Trinity test, the first ever atomic bomb detonation. Do you know that one?
Oh, yeah, that's a classic von Neumann story.
It just shows you how incredible his mind was. Like he's watching the explosion from a distance, right?
Mhm.
And just by observing how fast the debris falls back to Earth, he estimates the yield of the bomb.
It's almost unbelievable. He estimated it at 10 kilotons, which turned out to be incredibly accurate.
Wait, just by eyeballing it, how is that even possible?
That was von Neumann. Enrico Fermi, who was no slouch in the physics department, was there too. And he's using this more, let's say, formal method, timing how far a piece of paper moves to figure out the blast wave. But von Neumann just sees it and knows.
Like he had some kind of internal calculator that could process anything.
Exactly. He could connect the theory and the observation instantly, see those equations playing out in real time.
Amazing. But even with that incredible brain, he wasn't right about everything, right? There's that other anecdote about the shock waves during the war.
Oh, right. So von Neumann, he was one of the first people to really grasp how powerful computers could be, not just for calculations, but for simulating these complex physical events.
And that's where the computers come in.
Yes. He developed this groundbreaking program to model shock waves using one of the very first computers. He was so proud of this, rightfully so. It was cutting-edge stuff.
I bet. So what happened? Did it work?
It did. But there's this great part of the story. He's presenting his work to these colleagues, like really smart guys, including Theodor von Karman, who was like the aerodynamicist at the time.
Oh no, I sense a butt coming.
So von Karman, totally straight face, says something like, "That's interesting, John. Lagrange was using digital models for continuum mechanics back in the 18th century.
Oh no, you're kidding. Poor von Neumann.
Right. You can just imagine von Neumann being a little deflated, all that work, and here's this centuries-old method potentially doing the same thing.
Ouch.
But here's the thing. What von Karman was talking about, it wasn't exactly the same as von Neumann's program. But the point is, even someone as brilliant as von Neumann's, sometimes you get so excited about a new tool, you forget what came before.
That's a good lesson for all of us.
For sure. And the best part, von Neumann, he wasn't even upset. Apparently, he just kind of laughed it off, said something like, well, that's fascinating. He wasn't afraid to be wrong, to learn from others.
That's a good quality to have, especially for someone so accomplished. And it's that openness, that drive to learn and grow that allowed him to do so much in so many different fields. Okay, so we've covered a lot with von Neumann. The mind-blowing math, the atomic bomb, the computers. But what about von Neumann, the person? He wasn't just some robot, right?
Oh, not at all. He was actually a pretty fun guy, by all accounts. Loved a good party, good food, even a bit of Yiddish humor, apparently.
No way, really. I would not have pictured that.
He was full of surprises. But one thing that always stands out is his memory. It was legendary.
Oh yeah, the stories about his memory are insane. Like, wasn't there one about him memorizing an entire phone book?
That's the one. People would call out random paper numbers, names, whatever, and he'd just rattle it off. And it wasn't just a parlor trick either. We're talking whole books, word for word, years later. Makes you wonder how that kind of memory changes how you think,
Like having a photographic memory on steroids. Did that even come up in his work, or was it just a fun fact?
Are you kidding? That kind of memory was a superpower. He could pull from this vast library in his head, make connections nobody else could. There are stories, right? colleagues would be describing some complex problem, and von Neumann would just jump in, "Oh, you need theorem 4.5 from this obscure paper published in 1902." Like,
That,
okay.
stop it, seriously. That's insane. But for all that brain power, I hear he was also a pretty down-to-earth guy. Not the stereotypical, aloof genius.
Not at all. Loved collaborating with people, throwing ideas around, explaining things. There are tons of stories about him patiently working with students, colleagues, whoever, taking the time to share what he knew.
That's really cool. Because, sometimes you hear about these crazy smart people and you think, oh, they must have been so arrogant looking down on everyone else. But it sounds like von Neumann was the opposite.
Totally. He just loved learning, and he wanted other people to love it too. He got that knowledge is meant to be shared, built upon, all that. Good lesson in that for all of us.
100%. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the big takeaway here? How should we remember John von Neumann?
It's tempting to focus on the individual achievements, right? Which are incredible, don't get me wrong. But I think it's bigger than that. It's how he approached knowledge, how he approached life. The guy was relentlessly curious, always pushing boundaries, never satisfied with the easy answer, and he didn't limit himself either. He saw the connections between everything, math, physics, history, whatever,
Yeah.
all with this humility, this generosity. It's really inspiring.
A true polymath, like you said.
Yeah.
Someone who wasn't just brilliant, but also genuinely curious about the world around him.
Exactly. He understood that real knowledge isn't stuck in one little box. It's about making those connections, seeing the bigger picture, never losing that sense of wonder. That's something we can all learn from no matter what we do.
Absolutely. So to everyone listening, if you take one thing away from this, let it be this. Never be afraid to explore, to ask the big questions, to connect those dots. You might just surprise yourself with what you find.
Well said. And hey, maybe out there's another von Neumann just waiting to be inspired.
And on that note, that's our deep dive into the incredible mind of John von Neumann. We hope you enjoyed the ride. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, keep those minds curious.